Breaking news coming in. This is with regards to the tariff wars currently underway between India and the United States. Now, amid Trump's tariffs, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has come out to encourage Russian companies to engage more intensively with India. Amid the US imposing a 50% tariff on India, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has pushed to increase trade with Russia, encouraging Russian companies to engage more intensively with their Indian counterparts. Noting India's rapidly growing economy and initiatives like Make in India that have opened up new windows for foreign businesses, Jaishankar has said that these dimensions represent an invitation for Russian companies to engage more. So this is the particular news that we bring to you at the very top. Remember, India has always pushed for a multipolar policy, be it in their economy, be it in geopolitics as well. They've always pushed and they have always stood for diplomacy. They've stood for, in fact, multipolarity. And this remark that's coming from the External Affairs Minister is also on those very lines, to not be completely dependent, or rather to slowly start reducing dependency on just one big market, and also to find out other new stable markets out there in the global economy to in fact cement our own economy further at this given point. And this in fact comes in at a time when India has been extremely strong with regards to their stance against the Trump tariff threats, wherein while 50% has already been imposed, 25 plus 25 that we have seen, there have been more conversations around whether there might be additional sanctions if the Russia and Ukraine peace deal do not work out. There have been such statements that have come in from the White House as well of sanctions and how those sanctions on India is supposed to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. So amid these geopolitical circumstances, this is what our External Affairs Minister has had to say. Let's quickly, in fact, listen in.
In the last few years, we have experienced the impact of the COVID pandemic, of conflicts, of political and economic shifts, of new technologies, and also of trade volatility. Each was unique in itself, but together they hold some common lessons. One is the importance of dependable and steady partners. Another is the value of shorter and more secure supply chains. A third is the concern about over-dependence on a limited number of markets. A fourth are the vulnerabilities of being overexposed to a few suppliers. A fifth is the reliance on narrow connectivity and limited logistics. And perhaps most of all, the cost of insufficiently searching for new opportunities, partnerships, and domains.
Now, more breaking news is coming in, where an External Affairs Minister has addressed the trade imbalance with Russia. External Affairs Minister to Russia has in fact come out to say, and I quote, "Don't put all eggs in the US's basket." Jaishankar flags widening imbalance trade deficit with Russia. This is what has in fact been flagged by the External Affairs Minister. And we have Pranay Upadhyay joining us on the broadcast to bring us more details and also put it into further context for us, given the current geopolitical scenario. Pranay, a very good morning to you. You know, if we look at the comments that's been coming in from our External Affairs Minister, it's a rather strong message to the United States, as well as it's a push for our own multipolar policy that we have been standing by.
Absolutely, Shreya. And if you see the very strong statement given by External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar in Moscow, because he held a meeting of India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economics, Energy, Cooperation, Culture. And besides that, he also held a meeting with the India-Russia Business Council meeting, where he addressed the Russian businessmen. He encouraged them to partner with the Indian companies, because in the growing trade imbalance is a concern for India. In recent past, we have seen that the India-US bilateral trade, which is around $7 billion, wherein it has ballooned. It has gone up to about $59 billion, but the trade imbalance remains, and that is a cause of concern, because India imports more from Russia, and the exports from India are still limited to pharmaceutical, mechanical, machine tools, and some of the other areas. But India wants to expand its bilateral trade ties with Russia. And we target to achieve the $100 billion trade mark, bilateral trade mark by 2030. And for that, the terms of reference has been concluded during Foreign Minister Jaishankar's visit to Russia. This visit and the terms of reference for an FTA has already been concluded, and now both countries are aiming to have a FTA for a free trade agreement as soon as possible. Also, Dr. Jaishankar presented the case of migration and mobility agreement, which India has done with many of the other European countries, where the Indian skilled manpower, especially the Indian students, because Indian students go in large number to Russia to pursue higher education, and if they can have an arrangement of a migration and mobility arrangement, this will be a win-win situation for both the economies.
Pranay, another question that comes around at this point, and given the statements that we are seeing from our External Affairs Minister, is what India in fact plans to do right now, given the tariffs that have already been imposed, and in fact cementing relations with Russia, whether that might actually strain the current relations between India-US to a further degree.
Sure, this will be very ironical because on one side, we also have to see that how US is also trying to have a better trading relationship with Russia, because in the Alaska summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin went with a large business delegation to the United States, and he was and this business delegation's presence in Alaska was appreciated by the US President Donald Trump. So India cannot be penalized for having trade relations with Russia at a time when US itself is increasing its bilateral trade relation with Russia. And Russian President Vladimir Putin, if you have noted, that he said in the presence of US President Donald Trump that there has been a 20% trade increase in Russia-US trade since President Donald Trump assumed office. So clearly, India has always been a proponent of a multipolarity as well as the robustness of the logistics and supply chain, especially post-COVID. And this has been the idea that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. Trade is a thing where, there is a WTO mechanism, there is a free trade mechanism, and every country, try and diversify its trade basket depending on the availability of the resources and also its their own trade priorities. And India and Russia has always been a strategic partner. This is the 25th year of India-Russia strategic partnership, and in that trade partnership, India wants to diversify. And as the Russians also say, that this is not a buyer-seller relation. We want to expand this relation in terms of the co-development, in terms of the joint experience, in terms of the business development, and still keeping in view the history of India-Russia strategic partnership. Our bilateral trade is very less, and if you remove the oil component from this trade basket, then the other areas are not as good as the oil trade. So therefore, there is a need, there is a realization on both sides that this need to be diversified.
Absolutely. So there is definitely an irony there, and the irony lies in the double standards of the United States at this given point, which we have in fact been witnessing ever since this trade war began. Pranay, thank you for putting it into further context for our viewers at this point, and that's all that we have for you on this very story for now.